Hello, awards watchers. Gold Derby Senior Editor Daniel Montgomery here with my fellow editors Marcus James Dixon and Zachary Laws. We are here to discuss the Critics' Choice nominations, the Critics' Choice Awards. For film, they already announced their nominations for television a few weeks ago, but on today, February 8th, as we're recording this, they have announced their film nominees. And let's get us started. We'll just talk about who's on top. We've got Mank has 12 nominations, more than any other film, followed by Minari with 10 nominations. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom has 8, and News of the World has 7. And then you got a bunch of films that are tied together with 6, including Nomadland, Trial of the Chicago 7, Promising Young Woman. First off, what do you think of the list and how hardly anyone is really missing? Because they nominate like 10 Best Pictures and 7, 8, 9 nominees for acting, however many they can fit. What did you think, Zach?
Well, say what you will about them, but at least somebody had the good sense to finally nominate Spike Lee and Delroy Lindo after those Globe and SAG snubs. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised, like you said, Daniel, because, basically everybody that got nominated is within our top 10 rankings with our official odds at Gold Derby. So it wasn't a surprise necessarily to see Delroy Lindo and Spike Lee show up there. Along with everybody else who did. But I think it definitely helps their chances and helps sort of change the narrative of them being snubbed across the board, because the Five Bloods did quite well overall. It got 6 nominations. For me, the really big takeaway from this list is how well Minari performed. Yeah. 10 nominations, just 2 shy of Mank's 12. And when you compare those 2 movies, you really almost have like a La La Land Moonlight situation where, Mank is this hugely expensive, technically ambitious production with the full backing of Netflix and David Fincher and big stars in its cast, compared with this scrappy little indie with one recognizable actor. Most of it is in Korean. From a largely unknown filmmaker. And it's competing across the board in all of these above and below the line nominations. Now, we should note that 3 of those 10 categories are not going to show up at the Oscars. Ensemble and young actor. And also it is not technically a foreign language film, even though it's in Korean. It is an American production, so don't look for it to show up there. But for a movie like this to potentially get 7 Oscar nominations, including all those different places that we look at to pick a Best Picture winner, I think we really have to start taking this movie seriously as a contender.
I'm taking it seriously, Zach. It is my prediction to win Best Picture at the Oscars and Best Director. And I was a little bit late to this. I just watched Minari a week ago, and I was just blown away. It lives up to the hype, if not more so. I was so happy to see it get 10 nominations today. And I just wanted to mention, since you talked about Gold Derby's odds a little bit, the 10 Best Picture nominees today from Critics' Choice, they match up with our Gold Derby predictions 9 for 10. So we both have The Five Bloods, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, Minari, News of the World, Nomadland, One Night in Miami, Promising Young Woman, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. And their 10th is Sound of Metal. Our 10th is The Father. So that's the only place we disagree. But yeah, this Mank thing is interesting. Mank leads today. It was basically snubbed at the SAG Awards. It got 1 little nomination, but the Golden Globes loved it too. So it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's been up and then down and then now up again. This isn't totally surprising because it's such a technical film, and the Critics' Choice Awards have below-the-line categories that the Golden Globes and SAG Awards don't. So it was always going to be stronger here than it would have been there. But yeah, it got everything it needed. Basically, the stuff that we had been expecting for it for a while: picture, director, screenplay, actor, supporting actress. Supporting actress was snubbed, Amanda Seyfried, at the SAG Awards, but she got back in here. Got all the texts we were basically expecting. So, it depends. It's just now a matter of whether it wins. I actually think it's probably maybe 3rd for Best Picture to win at the Critics' Choice. I think they'll probably still give it to Nomad or Trial, but I'm not entirely sure. They could give it to Minari, but they want to predict the Oscars so badly that I don't know if they'll go for it here. Or maybe they'll give it their foreign language film award because it's eligible at these awards and not at the Oscars, being an American production. But yeah, I think it might still be Nomadland versus Trial of the Chicago 7 with their kind of 6 nominations apiece.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like whatever, whichever between the two of those wins the Golden Globe, pick that to win Best Picture Critics' Choice. Because I remember last year, it looked like the tide was going towards Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when it won all those Golden Globes and then won at Critics' Choice like a couple of nights later. And you remember they had this thing where Bong Joon-ho and Sam Mendes tied for Best Director right after Sam Mendes surprisingly won the Golden Globe. That was like the first prize that he had won against our odds. We had been predicting Bong Joon-ho over here. So yeah, I mean, basically whatever triumphs at the Golden Globes, just pick that to win at Critics' Choice. But I do think that in terms of what is going to win at the Oscars, the race is becoming a lot more fluid and wide open because of things like this Minari surge, because Mank keeps kind of like coming back and going away again, because you still have something like Nomadland, which is really sturdy and dependable, or Trial of the Chicago 7, which feels very relevant and of its time. And also, like the third nominations getter, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which could potentially win Best Actor for Chadwick and Best Actress for Viola. I think like one of those 5 or 6, however many I just named, is going to start to become like our Best Picture frontrunner.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the Critics' Choice Awards. We talk about their ties and we put them in air quotes sometimes, like I just did, because they seem dubious sometimes. Like you get 8 nominees for Best Actor here, 7 nominees for Director and Actress. I think so. Sometimes they give 2 awards in a night, like when they gave Best Director to both directors last year, as Zach mentioned, or Best Actress to both Glenn Close and Lady Gaga. And
Olivia Colman, because she won in comedy.
Olivia Colman, because she won in comedy. And the Critics' Choice Awards, more than other awards, are very open about wanting to be considered predictors of Oscar. Like they actually put it in their press release, like we are the #1 Oscar predictor in terms of awards, which other awards groups, even if they want that, they rarely say it out loud. Like we give awards to the best, and Critics' Choice are like, we give it awards because we want to preview what's going to happen at the Oscars. So I do kind of side eye come some of their ties sometimes, thinking, okay, is that a tie, or are you kind of splitting your bet to so you're right one way or the other?
Right. Didn't you say there's like 400 voting members? Yeah,
there are more than 400 voting members. They're entertainment journalists across TV, radio, online. So yeah,
the Golden Globes have like 90. So if they were to have a tie, it would kind of make sense, 45-45. But when you have this many people, having this many ties, there is, a question mark attached to that.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit questionable that there would be ties that often and ties that convenient. when they come in the categories where it looks like a tight race at the Oscars.
Yeah, so basically, if anybody's surprised at the Golden Globes, look for them to tie at the Critics' Choice.
Yeah.
And it's also especially dubious, we should say, that because they have so many nominees, you only need like 13-14% of the vote in order to win. So, the odds of 2 people getting that percentage so often is a little strange. I would suggest that they hire any of us to be the deciding vote in a tiebreaker, and so that we can cut down on the number of ties that they have every year, and maybe bring a little bit more legitimacy to this organization. Because I do want to say that like there are some good nominees here that I'm glad are recognized. People like Sidney Flanagan for never, rarely, sometimes, always.
And Talia Ryder in the young actor category. I don't know what their age difference is. It seems odd that one is in Best Actress and one is younger.
I think they're about the same age.
And Tom Hanks, News of the World, he finally gets nomination, which I know some people were mixed on this movie, but I freaking loved it. I loved this movie. And Helena gets in for younger actor, but not supporting actress, which kind of, if there was not a younger actor category, would she have gotten in for supporting actress?
Absolutely.
Probably.
Absolutely. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
So she's kind of hurt by that.
And it does make you wonder.
She's guaranteed to win, I think, Best Young Actor or Actress.
I don't know, because the little boy from Minari, Alan Kim, he stole that movie. And he actually had dialogue, unlike Helena, who was mostly silent.
But hers is a much showier
probably...
performance, and she's up at the Globes and SAG, and like we talked about them wanting to predict the Oscars, they're much more going to want to see her on stage whatever stage.
I mean, she's going to be my prediction, but if Alan Kim wins, don't be surprised.
And now that we have the Critics' Choice, Golden Globes, and SAG nominations in, we now know what actors have gotten in at all three awards.
Oh yeah.
Which should give us a good sense of who's going to get into the Oscars, although not always. We will talk about exceptions that we have had to this rule, but if you get Globe, SAG, Critics' Choice, your odds are like about 80 to 90%, let's say, that you're getting that Oscar nomination at that point. So for Best Actor, there are 4 actors who have cleaned up across the board. Riz Ahmed, Sound of Metal, Chadwick Boseman, Ma Rainey, Anthony Hopkins in The Father, and Gary Oldman in Mank. That leaves an open 5th slot, or more than that if you think one of these might be snubbed. Actress, you've got Viola Davis in Ma Rainey, Vanessa Kirby, Pieces of a Woman, Frances McDormand, Nomadland, and Carey Mulligan, Promising Young Woman. So again, 4 out of the 5 slots. Supporting actor, Sacha Baron Cohen, Trial of the Chicago 7, Daniel Kaluuya, Judas and the Black Messiah, Leslie Odom Jr., One Night in Miami. So only 3, and also only 3 in supporting actress, where you've got Maria Bakalova, who slight asterisk got in as a lead at the Golden Globes, but is a supporting actress at Critics' Choice and SAG, and is being campaigned there for the Oscars. Glenn Close in Hillbilly Elegy has managed the three-peat, and Olivia Colman in The Father. So interesting, the open slots we have. When I look at these and I think who's the most vulnerable of missing out, I think it's probably the ones who might be the only nomination for their movie, or one of the only nominations for their movie, because it shows that maybe not enough voters are going to bother watching it. So that's your Vanessa Kirby maybe for Pieces of a Woman, although Ellen Burstyn could also get in, but those are the only 2 really places we've seen support for it. Potentially Daniel Kaluuya for Judas and the Black Messiah, although I think he's a stronger, likelier bet. And even Glenn Close, at this point, I'm resigned to Glenn Close getting the nomination, but it is true that she's probably going to be one of only, at most, 2 or 3 nominations for Hillbilly Elegy, depending on whether they nominate Amy Adams, like SAG did, and if they nominate the hair and makeup. I think those are really the only other viable possibilities.
I think Glenn has a much better chance than you mentioned. I think the one in the category that may be struggling is Maria Bakalova.
That too, yeah.
Because it's such an over-the-top, un-Oscar type performance. Like, don't get me wrong, she was amazing and she would be on my personal list. But, these are older members who may not, take this movie seriously, which they shouldn't because it's a comedy.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that, let's not forget, this is the same organization, the Academy I'm talking about, that nominated Kathy Bates and Richard Jewell over Jennifer Lopez and Hustlers just last year.
Which is a case of the one of the exceptions where Jennifer Lopez got it and all 3 missed at the Oscars.
And I'm not saying that to slight Kathy Bates or Richard Jewell. I'm saying that because, that was a much more traditional Academy pick, right? As opposed to Jennifer Lopez and Hustlers was. And so, I agree. I think that I've been saying that Glenn Close is going to win the Oscar for months now, and starting to feel a little validated. I think Maria Bakalova looks really strong for a nomination. But if you're looking for somebody who could potentially be a really surprising snub, I would look at her, because, like you said, Marcus, I mean, the movie is. I do think that the movie should be taken seriously, even though it's a comedy, because it's a comedy that's about very important things. But it's also a Borat movie, and so people might not necessarily, even though the first movie got that screenplay nomination at the Oscars, they might turn their noses up at it, thinking that it's not a serious, important movie.
Yeah, the
Um,
screenplay categories are where you can get your kind of offbeat comedy pick a lot of times, especially because there are two screenplay categories. So you often get that lone screenplay nominee that's something a little bit more offbeat, unusual. So yeah, I've been debating whether to predict Maria Bakalova for the Oscar. Like after a Globe
Yeah.
and SAG, I put her in because I hadn't had her in even because she'd gotten all the critics awards, and I'm like, that's not going to materialize. That alone is not going to be enough to get this performance into Oscars. SAG made me think, okay, maybe it's happening. Critics' Choice was always going to happen because it happened at the Globes and SAG, so of course they were going to put it into the Oscar. I still am not sure about. I do think like if I have like a fourth and fifth place in my personal predictions, it's probably Glenn. Although Glenn probably maybe a little higher, maybe like third at this point.
should be.
And Maria is still fifth. Like is still fifth. Like she's the nomination will be a huge reward, but I can still see Oscar voters looking at their ballot and saying, Oscar nominee, Borat's subsequent movie film.
Yeah.
And
I will
asking
say, though,
themselves, are we doing that?
I will say though, let me, if they don't nominate her, then actors are stupid. Because if you think about, because seriously, if you think about what she had to do in terms of a performance, she had to be in character all the time. She could not break character because she would then break the illusion to people who thought that she was a real life person. So it's not, all due respect to people like Glenn, who gave a really transformative performance, but she was able to break character, at least in between takes. She was able to take the makeup off when she went home. Maria had to be
Hopefully.
Borat's daughter. Yeah, hopefully. Maria Bakalova had to be Borat's daughter 24/7. And
Oh, go ahead.
if you could fool Rudy Giuliani,
Well, 4 seasons. He mistook 4 Seasons Total Landscaping for the 4 Seasons Hotel, so that may not be the hardest part of her acting job.
I
but
feel like we could
everybody
do an
else.
all Borat slugfest. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Can we go back to Best Actor 1 second? Because you said there was 4 that got in at Critics' Choice, Golden Globes, and SAG Awards. So who do we each think is the 5th? I just put in Stephen Yeun and Minari, but I know, Zach, you probably think Delroy Lindo. In your heart is getting in, but in your head, do you think so?
For right now, I still think Delroy Lindo has a good chance. I would also say that there's a possibility of someone amongst that 4 missing for Stephen Yeun. I know a lot of people think Gary Oldman seems pretty obvious, and that might be it, but I don't know when you consider how well Mank has been doing overall.
Yeah, the only thing about the movie that SAG liked was Gary Oldman.
Yeah. Like, Stephen Yeun I could see getting an over Delroy Lindo, but at the same time, Stephen, I'm glad that he's getting all this attention because it's such a subtle performance.
Yeah, that's true.
Subtle performances sometimes don't make it in with
compared
actors.
to the grandma who is over, like she steals the movie.
Exactly. I think I would say she has a better chance of getting in right now than Stephen Yeun does. Right. But it's a really tough call to make.
Yeah, I would say Stephen Yeun, if assuming that these 4 are in, Stephen Yeun probably gets the 5th. But I do think Gary Oldman is vulnerable. I think if he hadn't won for Darkest Hour, like he'd be running away with this, just because this is like as showy as that performance was. This is a very showy. He gets to play drunk and he gets to give like self-righteous tirades about capitalism, which I'm here for. But that happened so recently, and that was a makeup award. So I feel like, we've seen like already the SAG awards, which are the only of these 3 awards that are an industry group. They were really kind of chilly about Mank. So if there is a limited amount of support for the film overall in the industry, that could come back on Gary Oldman. I actually think even with the snub of Amanda Seyfried, I think Seyfried is a safer nominee than Gary Oldman, even though Gary Oldman has gotten in everywhere.
I mentioned in another Slugfest that, if Mank gets in everything except for Gary Oldman, it would be kind of just like Robert De Niro in The Irishman getting snubbed, and everything else from The Irishman gets in. So, and which was
everything
another
but the title
big
character in
Netflix
the movie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so it's not unprecedented. If Delroy Lindo misses BAFTA, then I'll probably put in Stephen Yeun over him. But I don't know. I mean, I have to feel that if people who like The Five Bloods would have a hard time not voting for Delroy Lindo, especially if they're going to give a nomination to Chadwick Boseman, which is seeming more and more likely as he showed up both here and at SAG in both categories. So I don't know. It's just it's a tough call for me.
Yeah, Delroy feels like one of those actors who, like, okay, they missed here and they missed there, but they still get the Oscar nomination. Like, I feel like that. Like, I hope there's been enough of a narrative around, hey, Delroy Lindo doesn't have an Oscar nomination yet. Give him an Oscar nomination, because Spike Lee wrote him a Shakespearean part practically, where he delivers a soliloquy in the middle of it. So, like, it would be really weird for this film to hit, and for him in particular to miss. Like, it made sense with The Irishman a bit, because Robert De Niro was giving kind of the quiet performance in the middle of a lot of broader, more transformative performances. But here it's like Delroy Lindo is like, how are people watching this movie and saying, The Five Bloods is one of the best pictures of the year, and not nominating one of the things that is most central to that happening.
I hope he gets in just for Zach's sake.
And for everybody's sake. There was a T-shirt that went on sale after the SAGs snubbed him that said, "Nominate Delroy Lindo, you cowards." So I know I'm not the only person. I bought one of those T-shirts, of course, but they sold out pretty quickly, it seems. So I have to think that everybody is getting on the ground to get him in that fifth slot. So.
Well, if he doesn't get in, and Marie Bakalova doesn't get in, and Zach rails against stupid actors once again, just letting all of our watchers and listeners in the Screen Actors Guild that you can message him on Twitter and
exactly, yeah.
Send your hate mail to at him bros. So with that, do you have anything else any thoughts about these nominations that pops out at you, Zach, before we sign off?
I would say, after, just combined with this and the Globes and SAG, for a year where it seemed like they were going to struggle coming up with enough contenders to fill out potentially 10 Best Picture nominees, there's a lot of competition. So I think even with all of these movies that got delayed because of the pandemic, there's still a lot of really good quality work that's being recognized. And there's going to be a lot of heartbreaking snubs. And I hope even a few really great surprises when Oscar nominations come out. So that's my big takeaway from all this, from the last few days.
My big takeaway is, they got to trim some of these categories. I mean, we should not have 8 for Best Actor. I mean, it was a great year, but it almost feels like Oprah giving away cars at this point. I love my Minari 10 nominations. I'm rooting for that at the Critics' Choice and pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, no guts, no glory, Critics' Choice. You don't get to brag about predicting the Oscars anymore if you keep nominating 10 things in every category with ties, So, actually put up or shut up. Nominate 6. That's fine. That's a consistent number, which is good because it lets someone in who maybe would have been on the bubble, and it's nice to see extra recognition for. Mm-hmm. But 7 or 8, we see you. We see you. With that, I have now put Critics' Choice organization on notice. Zach has put the industry's actors, all of them, on notice. So with that, we will receive your hate mail, and see you soon, and talk about the rest of this award season as it progresses.